Hey everyone, this is Corinne Lafont, your favorite radio host, your only radio host, and favorite girl, of course, broadcasting to you from the lovely island of Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean on Between the Lines. And you know how I start my show off the same way every time with gratitude. Gratitude is the way to live. I am thankful to be above ground. I am thankful to be here. I'm thankful to bring to you another guest on my show to share with you and to empower you, educate you, make you take action, and of course, increase your self worth. Learn something new today and spread the love. It's all about love. That's what I'm about. That's what my show is about. Yeah. And you're seeing a handsome man on the screen there. Let me tell you a bit about him before I officially welcome him. His name is Dr. Robert F. DeFinis, which is a nice name, DeFinis. I hope I pronounced that properly. He has been working with athletes, coaches, teams, leaders, and organizations for over 20 years, consistently leveraging optimal performance strategies into success stories. As a former, I will say, DIII athlete and coach, we'll find out more about that. Dr. DeFinis understands the physical and mental commitments athletes and coaches endure to accomplish their goals. In addition, as an organizational leader, Dr. DeFinis has cultivated human capital to maximize business outcomes while creating employee satisfaction. Born just outside of Philadelphia, Montgomery County, Dr. DeFinis received his doctorate in organizational leadership and development and a master's in education while acquiring several certifications in sports and performance psychology. He is also the creator of Total Optimal Performance Solutions and host of Rising to the Top podcast. Dr. DeFinis created RDF Books in 2020 and writes children's books dealing with contemporary issues and teen play. He is an all-rounder, clearly. Welcome, Dr. Robert DeFinis, to Between the Lines.
Thank you for having me. I am happy to be here.
Great, it's great to have you. And the topic we're discussing is what can we learn from athletes in accomplishing our goals? Let me repeat that. What can we learn from athletes in accomplishing our goals? And before you say anything, let me just give a little context. The reason why I chose that, because I know you wanted to discuss your book and we will feature that later down in the show. The reason that appealed to me is that, you know, we all look at sports, even though we may not play the sports. But we were supposed to have Olympics this year, didn't we? We were supposed to have Olympics this year, and that didn't happen because of COVID-19. That's okay. And my thinking is when I saw your bio, I was like, this would be an interesting topic because how you look at athletes train for years and years. Olympics is every 4 years, and these athletes are looking forward every 4 years. It's like a forever waiting to showcase their talent, to win this Olympic medal, gold especially, and then come back again another 4 years once they are within the age group. And so they're training. And I'm like, what can we learn from these sort of people? What is it that makes them so special? Because you watch them, you're engaged, you're like, my God, what does it take to perform? Because when you see them running like the 100 meters or throwing the javelin and you see the sacrifices, the pain that they're going through when they don't make the cut, when they don't qualify, you're like, my God, it's like, I've been training for this for how many years and I don't make it on the world stage, the global stage, and I have to wait another 4 years, but they're still doing it. They're still pushing. What does it take? What can we learn from these athletes, especially given that we didn't have Olympics this year? So let's have Olympics here on Between the Lines. Let's pretend we are the ones and we're training persons to be able to take from that and be able to perform as a human being, as a parent, as a business person, as a leader. What can we take from athletes? I'm leaving it all to you.
So there's a lot there, I think, to dissect. But the first thing I think we should talk about is the drive. You're talking about very specific, high-level, high-performing athletes, and there's a certain level of drive and commitment to their sport, and that's what first makes them very unique. They're not just out there playing. They're out there competing. And competition is very different than going out in the backyard and throwing the ball around or kicking a soccer ball. They're on the, you said it, they're on the biggest stage, and competition is very important to high-performing and professional athletes. One thing that's going to be very interesting, I think, moving forward is there's a lot of talk about performing in empty stadiums, right? Wow. Because of COVID-19, that we might not have actually spectators in the beginning when we start to open up professional sports.
Wow.
And so what will that look like, right? Because athletes
empty,
at that level.
Empty, Robert. Empty. I can't imagine that, because I'm thinking, I'm sorry to cut you, I'm thinking the whole ambiance, the whole environment is having the spectators, the energy, because these athletes, when you watch them, they actually feed off of the energy. You see them clapping and, like, yes. Yay, bring the energy, pump it up, So if there's nobody to pump it up and to feed them, then what?
And at that level, that drives them. That is a lot of professional athletes in the last few months have talked about this, especially here in the States, where they have said that they might not really want to return. It's not all about money and profile. They love their sport. They love the competition, and they do it for the fans. And a lot of them have spoken about this. So it's interesting because there's that piece as well. That's a huge motivator for people that perform at that level. It's no different.
But let me cut in there, Robert.
Sure.
There's another side to that coin. You are on a world stage, and you mentioned drive. Let's talk about this. You mentioned drive, and drive to me is an internal motivator. It's something within you. So why do you really need to have external, motivation, or why would you need it? Because that's a good point. If you don't have people cheering you, why do you need me to feed that motivation if you are internally driven? You should be able to still perform, because the goal is still there. The gold medal goal is still there. You are there to win. You are there to perform. Why do you need spectators to make you feel good? Why? That seems very egotistic to me. If I want to be a devil's advocate.
Sure. So we have two types of motivators. You talked about the one, which is intrinsic, what's inside of us that drives us. And that has to be satisfied. So normally the intrinsic part of being an athlete is, things like mental well-being, physical well-being. We love our sport. I'm a soccer coach. I love soccer. Right. But there's also an extrinsic piece, the gold medal, the competing in front of athletes, the records and being the best, or, quantifying the records. You actually, a lot of studies have been done. You actually need both, a good balance of each. Now, while the intrinsic one is the most important one for all of us, athletes are definitely motivated by extrinsic ones. If you cut the season in half, they look at it as like, you take an 80-some season, 160-some season for, professional sports, and you cut that in half, they look at it like possibly these things really aren't, they're not as meaningful because it's been, things have been diluted. You follow what I'm saying? So there is that piece of it that athletes look at. So it's a balance. It's not just money. It's not just competition. It's not just being healthy. I think the true athlete is looking for balance, just like all of us in our own work environment, right? We are motivated intrinsically. Not if you work for a company and you're intrinsically motivated by what they perform or do for the greater good of people, that brings you to work every day. It might not just be the paycheck.
But here's the thing. It speaks to change. And COVID has forced a lot of us to accept change and to adapt. Why it is that you have to stay within your own comfort zone and feel that, okay, everything else has to change given the COVID situation. Within athletics or within sports, it is not supposed to change. You should be willing to change. Just like when your coach is telling you, look, I see you performing this way, and if you do this, it will make a difference. That is part of change too. Why you can't Why you can't look at a pandemic or a situation and realize, okay, the situation has changed and now it is calling for my mindset, a whole paradigm shift, and now things have to change. And I don't necessarily need to have spectators because my goal is really to get that gold medal, whether people are there or not. I don't need that extrinsic motivation in order to perform. I still get the gold medal. That doesn't change. Whether people are there or not, I will still get the gold medal. Explain that to me.
So I think a couple of things there. I've just done 2 webinars about the opportunities that exist in COVID-19. You have to reframe it. You talked about a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
You have to actually reframe what's actually happening. It's not all doom and gloom. Obviously, we have to be respectful of the science and all of the precautions so people don't get sick. Right. But I think as an athlete, and specifically as a coach in an organization or a team, I think that there are opportunities to change. You talked about it, change the way we're looking at the situation. Now, change management, there's a whole type of criteria for doing such change. And I think it starts with incremental change, little things along the way that can prepare you for a completely different way of looking at the situation. And it starts now. We need to be, personally, I coach two teams. I coach a men's and women's soccer team. And I'm meeting with them once a week online to discuss all the possibilities that are going to occur. The season could continue like it's scheduled. It could be canceled. It could be altered or, adapted in a certain way. And it is my job as a coach to start to implement the change mentality in all of my players to guide and support them, because I don't want them to show up at camp without me discussing pieces of what has occurred, how we get through it, what are the opportunities that lie in front of us. I've been talking a lot about we are experiencing things like we would in a situation of any type of grieving, right? There is a grieving process. That's and right. The last part of the grieving process is acceptance, right? We accept something because once we do that, then we get to the other side and we can be open to the change that you're talking about.
Wow. This is amazing. I know we started off discussing or saying, what can we learn? And I'm hearing you because I want to transition from the athletics into the performance, because they are driven, you said intrinsically and extrinsically driven, so it's a drive. And I want us to learn from the athletes, but also at the same time, learn to adapt, to be flexible. So how can we use all what you're saying to help simple individuals, and not to make them seem below or anything like that, but the layman, the person in business, the mother, the father, homes, to be able to perform, to be the best that they can be, to be able to adapt? What can we learn from these athletes, and especially in this new normal, as they're calling it?
Sure. So I'll tie in what you a topic that you wanted to talk about today, which is goal setting.
Right.
I think it crosses so many different areas, and it's not just for obviously CEOs or managers or athletes. It's for all of us. If we go back to the 1960s and we look at Edwin Locke, who was one of the first theorists who talked about the importance of setting goals. And we've learned and we've adapted certain criteria. Today you hear a lot about SMART goals, S-M-A-R-T goals.
Yeah.
We've even added an E and an R to SMARTer. So it's SMARTer goal. We've adapted, right? We've taken that model and we've shifted. And I think first understanding the importance of a goal. We can't be general. And we see this a lot. Let's just take it into like something along the lines of like losing weight, right? We say something like, I want to lose weight. But the reality of it is that's not a really defined goal. It's just kind of abstract in nature and very, very subjective to person. So that's why we got to get very specific with the goal, because then we can see the validity of a SMART goal. And SMART goal really means something that's S is specific, okay? M is measurable, A is achievable, R is relevant, And we'll stop with T, smart, time. And if you put all of those pieces in, then you can get to the end and see the results of everything you've established to achieve that goal. But if you don't put pieces of that in, if they're not specific, like I don't want to just lose weight, I want to lose 10 pounds, right? And I want to do that within 5 weeks. And each time I go to the gym, I'm going to do X amount of exercises, cardio and lifting. And then I'm going to measure it. That's the M. Measure it each day. And it's not 40 pounds, it's 10 pounds. So it's achievable. And it's relevant, that R in there, it's relevant because this is personal to me. I want to get healthy. It'll benefit my family and my own mental well-being. So even though I just threw a lot at you, it's very, very important, especially for athletes and high performers, not to be abstract with their goals. It'll be much more harder to achieve.
But here's the thing, Robert. Here's the thing. Consistency. We set goals. We do the Christmas thing, the going into the New Year thing, and we say this is what we want to do, the New Year's resolution every year. And it seems as if every year the same resolution just gets carried forward. But the thing about it is consistency and discipline. When you look at athletes, you see a certain discipline. And, it makes you wonder, do they really have days where they don't want to crawl out of bed? That they don't want to eat what their coaches and dietitians are telling them? That they don't want to train? That it's too cold? Are they going through those human-like type of things? Because you wanna get a feeling that they do go through it. They don't want to come out of their bed. But what it is, like we mentioned before, is driving them, their why. What it is that is driving them to crawl out on the floor, roll off the bed and realize, I have to do this. What is it that we need to focus on? What do we need to find a why, like Simon Sinek said, the why. The why. What is it that will drive you to keep losing that weight, or to make sure that you lose that weight, or to be healthy, or to start that business, or to whatever it is that you really want to do? Tell me what it is. Because saying that you want to have that goal is one thing. Writing it down, pasting it up, sticking it with lipstick on your bathroom mirror, it's all over you, all on your fridge, everything is fine, but you're still not doing it. It takes a sort of discipline, and it's like a sort of, I don't know, a war type mentality. What does it take is what I want to know, because the performance really is not going to happen until that discipline and consistency is there.
Well, I think first it's also, we have to understand that it's a mind shift. It's a reset. So all of the things you've been doing to collect all of these excuses and the things of the why, right? The why me? Why can't I? Why can I never? So you have to really change your language. You have to change your approach. You have to change your mindset before you ever even start to put things down on paper. Now, I will be honest with you. I think for a lot of people, they need also accountability agents. Who's going to keep them accountable for doing X, Y, and Z? The high performer athlete, first of all, you have to understand, and I just had a guest on my podcast not too long ago, and he talked about this, and it hit me. First, the high performing athlete, the professional athlete, the college athlete, they also have, so there's a biology factor. They have the skill sets, a lot of the skill sets that make them successful. Okay. So their physique, not everybody can step on, even though you play soccer doesn't mean you can step onto a professional field. So that's 50% of it, right? Is the ability. The raw talent. Right. The raw talent. Okay. And then there is the other things that we're talking about today, and it's a commitment, but there's a piece of this too, routine. You have to get into a routine, and you have to live with that routine and be okay with it. That's why if we go back to the SMART goals, the whole thing about achievable, you're not going to, if you played a sport and you're going to decide in your early 20s, you're going to try to become an Olympic athlete, it's probably not going to happen. You've missed certain opportunities along the way.
Yeah.
But in day to day, at your own job, in your community, in special activities and groups that you belong to, you can still be a high performing achiever if you put a routine, commitment, goal setting theory. But it's not just one, right? You can't bake a cake just with eggs. It's not going to work.
You could try. You could try, Robert.
You can try real hard, but I don't think you're gonna enjoy the final product.
You could
so
try. You could try.
There's pieces that I think are required, and you have to be committed.
Yeah.
I work with individual athletes all of the time outside of my coaching, part of my consulting, and they come to me for a variety of reasons. And I come back to this all the time. I'll say to them, so, why are you here? And they'll say something, well, I scored 15 goals last season, and this season, I'm at 5 and the season's almost over. What happened? Well, we have to peel back the layers, right? Figure out, because it's probably not what happened in the gym. Something along the way has become a barrier for you as an athlete that is preventing you to get to that specific goal.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, Robert. I love that point where we're on, because how do you figure out what is really the barriers? What's stopping you? It's not that you may not recognize you have the talent, or others don't recognize you have the talent, but what do you need to do to peel back those layers, like you say, to dig deep, to figure out? And it takes persons being humble, a humility to recognize, yes, that could be it, and a vulnerability. Those are the two things I think it takes of persons to be willing to accept and say, I'm willing to look at this. That may be an issue. Let's work on that. Let's try that. As opposed to somebody saying, no, it's not that. No, it cannot be that. No, you have to be humble and you have to be vulnerable. Share how you work as a coach with persons to peel those layers, because that is the thing that's impacting their performance.
Well, one thing I always say is we do our best work when we're most uncomfortable, because we're really willing to, like you just said, get past the excuses, hold ourselves accountable, be reflective practitioners in what we're doing, so we can then move forward and really get to the root of the problem so we can be successful. So I always say also, my athletes are very individual. I've coached many, many athletes along the way, and I've realized that it's not one size fits all. Every one of them have provided or have been very different in their own right. So while I coach and teach a team sport, I also realize that there are 11 individuals that make our team very successful. Wow. So if I'm working with one of my athletes or one of my individual players, I want to first, diagnose specifically what's happening in their life that is possibly preventing them from being successful. So it's a little bit of dialogue, it's follow-up, it's continuity in meeting with them and discussing multiple things. Something that I implemented a few seasons back, journaling, athletic journaling is something that's a little bit newer, and coaches are starting to adopt, which is a daily reflection on you as an individual athlete. And are you hitting these things, these goals that we talk about at the beginning, middle, and at the end of the season? Goals aren't really good if you're just going to put them in a book and shelf them off to the side, right?
Yeah. I want to couple the question here as we're closing off, as we're finishing off. As a coach, you are dealing, like you said, with 11 athletes as part of your team. And it's not just 11 as a team, it's 11 individual personalities, 11 individual, what would you call that? To coach individually. But for you as a coach, you are one person dealing with 11. What have you learned about yourself as a result of dealing with each of those 11?
So you can't do things across the board all the time. You can't implement team policy, strategy, or any type of support that's, like I said, one size fits all. So I've adapted over the years to really focus in and to give them that one-on-one instruction and also time, in team meetings, or, if they're not always going to be the one to approach you to ask for support or help. Also, I'm coaching now at the collegiate level, so it's also important because it's a student athlete, right? There's the student part and the athlete part. So I have to, right? So I have to find balance because they're there primarily for their education. That's the most important thing. Yeah. So I also have to make sure that they realize that even though they love playing and they want to play, they also are there for long-term educational and workforce goals that are just as important. So for me to answer that question, I would say I've developed a more balanced approach to my leading, my coaching, and my teaching of my players.
And on a personal level, you're dealing with 11 families, 11 students, on a personal level for you. But what have you learned from them? Because it shouldn't be a one-way approach that they teach you. But what have you learned from them that you sit down home and you reflect on things about you?
So every season and every time I've coached, I've always taken something very unique based upon what they have presented. More recently, though, just so I think because it's timely and topic, is I've learned that things happen like the coronavirus, and you plan before coronavirus. You plan for you plan for a championship season. You plan to have the best recruits on the field. And then in the blink of an eye, everything dramatically changes. So I've learned personally through them and their perseverance that, we need to treat each day individually. We need to take things as they come, and we need to prepare as a team because we can't stop even though, we don't know what's going to happen in the fall. We hope and we think we're going to play. Yeah. But we need to prepare like we are. It doesn't matter. It's non-negotiable. Yeah. So they've taught me individually through their own perseverance of what they've been going through for the last 12 weeks that it's going to be okay. We're going to figure it out together as a team, and we're going to be prepared when camp starts.
Remind me of your website again as I pull it up here.
It is DeFinis, DEFINIS.com, DrDeFinis.com.
Dr. DeFinis. So I did pronounce it properly.
You did.
I did. Yay. All right. So let me bring up that website here and share the screen. There we go. And of course, it has to do with sports. What would you like me to focus on here? Your book. Where can we get that book? And you're a children's author. I mean, how is that possible? You're a coach, you're dealing with students, and a children's author. Come on.
So I wear many hats, and something that I wanted to do many years ago, but finally have found the time to start to put things down on paper, is I started to write children's books. Oh, nice. I have 2 that are coming out this next year, and I also have one that just came out that's very timely. If you go, I think, up to the top, and we go to more, and RDF Books right there.
Nice.
And you're going to see, hopefully, some of my new projects that are coming out that will be out.
Oh, Dalton and Dexter play baseball. Look at them.
So that is going to be that's going to be a 4-part series that helps children and families learn new sports and all the challenges and opportunities that come with signing your children up to participate in a new activity.
Okay, lovely.
And this
coloring book, is it?
This is just a sketch right now, and it's been updated, but I'm working on this still. So my daughter will be entering kindergarten this year, so I'm working on a first day book for children that will be entering kindergarten in 2020. Things possibly will be very different for them.
For sure, for sure.
Right. Yeah. So I'm working on a book for that. That will be out hopefully August 1st. And then this book here is How to Defeat the Icky, Filthy, Creepy, Slimy Corona Monster.
Yes.
And so obviously the inspiration for this book has been the COVID-19 pandemic.
Nice.
And in this book, basically it just helps and supports families and children to take to empower them to take some responsibility with washing their hands, covering their cough, and creating some social distance.
That's
There
great.
is a video version of the book, and the book is also online.
Yeah, let's have a look at this video. Nice. And you said your books are on Amazon?
They are. You can click on the link there, right on the icon. They're on Amazon.
Yeah.
And we have many distributors. It's taken off fairly well. This week we have over 20,000 downloads and
nice.
close to 2,000 ebooks and physical copies reserved and sold.
Oh, lovely. Well, congratulations on your books, Robert. I wish you all the best. I like that you brought out a book which is meant for children. You know, it's because, you know, the kids are the ones that are hard to kind of get into control. Their hands are all over the place and all sorts of things. And
Right.
believe it or not, the parents, the adults are probably even more challenging than the kids. The kids are the ones who are turning around and teaching us, to tell you the truth. So,
Absolutely.
so it's been a pleasure having you on Between the Lines. Thank you so much for being here and sharing. I wish you all the best. I know things are going to be a bit different post-COVID, but that's what we are about. We are supposed to be adaptable and flexible, and we have to learn to fit into the new normal, as they call it. And for all you know, just keep an open mind. Keep an open mind. Thank you so much for being here, Robert. Any final words before you go?
Nothing. Thank you so much for having me and sharing my story. I appreciate it.
Yes, it's great having you on Between the Lines.